Hey, everybody. My name is Casey Siekman, and I am a software engineer at SUNA here in Minneapolis. They also have locations in Denver and Austin, and SUNA is such a fun company to work for. So their specialty is fast casual content, photography or videography. If you can see my profile, it has like the pink background. That's when I had pink hair just a little bit ago. And so they do headshots. So I love getting headshots there. And then they also do like product photography, which is perfect for like your online store refresh, social media. You can send stuff in. You can sign up for a program to like store your stuff there. So if you're just like, I need a fall refresh, you can just pull it out and you can have a photo shoot virtually while the photos are like appearing before you. And so that's the website that I work on, is the site where people can book their reservations. They get to be on their photo shoot with like a creative like director and photographer and stylist if they want it, or any hand models, full body models, pet models, and they didn't have to set any of it up. They just get to sit back and enjoy. And so that's the website that I work on. And then they can order photos. So photos start at $39 and videos are $93. And so everybody here, we have a promotion going on for Twin Cities Startup Week, working from home. That is TCSW21. I think Caitlin will also put that in the chat. And you can get your first photo for free. So product photography, headshot, anything like that. If you're in Minneapolis, definitely swing on by. We have a super fun studio. Denver has one, and then also Austin. So that is where I'm currently working. In a previous career, I was an instructor at Prime Digital Academy. And I like to say that because the time that I had working with students really helped inform me more about communication. And I kind of got to like practice all of my skills on them and say, hey, you're all working together. You should try doing this. Or if students would come up to me with an issue, or they would have a communication issue with another student, I would get to kind of try some things out. If any of them are here right now, they're probably like, totally. I didn't realize I was a guinea pig. I also have a degree in journalism. That was my undergrad degree before I started getting into software engineering. And so I love being in software engineering and having that journalism degree, because I think our industry is such a fantastic industry to be a part of. But there are so many possibilities for miscommunication. It is the most communicative job I've ever held. I know a lot of people probably, they might have that old idea of like a developer working in a dark basement all by themselves. And that is not the case anymore. I talk to people so much every day. Our code, we're working on our code and then we bring it together. So we always have to talk about how we're going to bring it together. So there's so many opportunities to work on our effective communication. So that's just a little bit about me and what's informed me to give this talk today, along with just reading a ton of books and listening to podcasts. I swear almost every sentence, a lot of sentences of mine start with like, oh, I heard on a podcast, or I heard on NPR, or I read in this book. So I have done some of the work, hopefully, of taking in all this information, trying things out, and figuring out kind of what are the important things that I can tell you in 50 minutes so that you don't have to do all of that work. So the focus today is on nonviolent communication. And when we say nonviolent, I'm not talking about physical violence, although it can present itself like that sometimes, but it's mainly like the violent ways we might communicate, either by putting somebody down or judging somebody or saying something we don't mean. And I actually, as a student, learned about nonviolent communication while I was at Prime. I learned it from Fred Sheehan. He was really fantastic and introduced me to this nonviolent communication. So this book is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall B. Rosenberg. He is a psychiatrist, I can't remember exactly, I think psychologist, that came up with this skill set. And so this book, I have just highlighted so much and read so much of it over and over. I just bought it on audiobook so I could just listen to it. This is really where a lot of my information is coming from, along with some other books that I've read that kind of support some of the things in here. So it has seriously changed my life, because I think for me personally, I used to kind of suffer in silence. I used to just say everything is fine. It's fine. Ugh, it's fine. But then be just like kind of angry and all stirred up inside, and just like hold that grudge against people. And it was a very toxic way of communicating. I wouldn't let anybody in. And then I would hold a grudge when people would do something that I didn't want to do, but I didn't tell them that I didn't want to do it, So it's just like a vicious cycle. And so the big thing that I learned from nonviolent communication is that a lot of our communication starts inward. We have to really look inward and understand ourselves before we're able to look outward and understand others and communicate effectively with others. So that is kind of like the basis. So I'll just dive right in now. I don't know how much time I'll have for questions at the end, because I have like so much to get through. So feel free to chat on the side if I see anything that kind of piques my interest or might be or if I just see it. So apologize if I miss it. But if I see something and kind of relates to maybe what I'm talking about, I'll try to answer it too and maybe bring that in. So I'm just going to do it. All right. So nonviolent communication is based on the idea that as humans, like we have to remember that we're all humans. As humans, it is in our nature we enjoy giving and receiving in a compassionate way. Have you ever had anybody just like honestly just ask you for help and you were so excited to help them? I just had a friend who had a baby, and she'll ask me every now and then, like, hey, when you come over, can you bring me a latte? Like a matcha latte. Matcha latte with oat milk. Or, hey, can you come over while I go to therapy and watch the baby for just a little bit? And I am so honored to be the one that she's asking for help. And the fact that she's like just saying like, I need help. Here's how you can help me. Like asking for help from somebody, it just like is like giving them a little gift of just like, here, I need your help, and here's exactly how to help me. And it makes us, it makes us feel really good to help one another. But through just growing in our lives, in our society, we have become disconnected from that feeling, that enjoying giving and receiving compassionately. And one of the big things that leads us to that is by using communication that blocks that compassion. And some of the types of communication that blocks that compassion is like moralistic judgment, saying like, oh, that's not how I live, so that's wrong, right? So just that straight up judgment. Comparison. Comparing either makes you feel better or worse than somebody, and it's another type of judgment. I think Dan Greenberg had I wrote it down. He has a book called How to Make Yourself Miserable, and it basically had a study in there that, or kind of a research thing where it was people were told to look at a picture of somebody beautiful and just compare themselves physically to them, and just say like, oh, they have so much nicer hair than you. Like your eyes are a little bit dull compared to theirs, all these horrible things. And then they took it one step further and was like, now compare yourself on more of like a personality or intellectual level, and just not the stuff on the outside. Now compare yourself to things on the inside. And it's like, nobody felt good after comparing themselves. So another type of compassionate blocking communication is denial of responsibility. That's one big thing that you'll learn in this talk, is like owning things. Like you are the one who is creating your feelings, and you have to own that, and you own what you need, and you own the way you feel. So you don't really by saying like, I have to do this, or using like impersonal pronouns or something like that, you basically are lifting the responsibility off of yourself and putting it somewhere else. And kind of, you lose control of the situation. And when we realize that we do have control over ourselves, I think we gain a lot of our power back. So then another one is communicating desires as demands. And we'll learn this in the fourth part of our the Four Pillars of Nonviolent Communication. So if you ask for something, but you don't expect to be turned down, that's not really a request. That's kind of a demand. And that really shuts down communication. And then using language like deserves. Well, they deserved to get in trouble. They deserved for this to happen to them. That's another way of impressing judgment. So I found this quote when I was looking through my book again, and I just thought it was really fantastic. So this is right from Marshall Rosenberg. And it kind of sums up this first little introduction part. And it's most of us grew up speaking a language that encourages us to label, compare, demand, and pronounce judgments, rather than to be aware of what we are feeling and needing. And so that kind of brings back that idea. I feel like we've gotten very outward with our communication and with our awareness. We care about how others are feeling. We care about what others are thinking. We care about how we affect others, which is, I mean, that's a good thing. But it's all, we're looking outward and we aren't really looking inward and analyzing, like, why do I feel that way? Why do I feel angry when this person talks to me? Why do I feel like every time that person says something, they're attacking me? Why do I feel this way? So understanding yourself and how you react to things really helps you analyze more, like what's going on the outside world. If you've ever heard that you got to fill your tank before you can help others fill theirs, you got to put your mask on before you put others' masks on. It's kind of the same thing. And that is one thing that I would get caught up in, is like, I would always try to help others to a fault. And then I would have no energy left for myself. And then I would keep going. And then I would get resentful towards others, of just like, I'm giving and giving and giving. I'm not getting anything. And that's not why we give. We give because we're compassionate and we want to, not because we're expecting things. So looking inward, starting there, so that then we're more effective when we go outward. So we're going to get into, that's kind of the introduction to nonviolent communication. And so nonviolent communication is a skill set. It's not perfect. It's definitely one of those things that maybe you can just take bits and pieces from it that work for you. I'm not saying this is like a cure-all for all of your issues. There are some people, I had my heated blanket wrapped around my leg and now I'm hot. There are some issues that this doesn't work on. There are some people that this doesn't work on. If you're trying to be compassionate towards a person that has absolutely no compassion towards you, that can be a big energy drain. You can do your best, but at some point you might just be like, I got to move on, And so just use that filter as you're listening to this. This is a skill set that you can put in your tool belt and hopefully practice. It takes a lot of practice and apply to your daily life. Okay, so I'm very excited. I don't know if you can tell. The 4 pillars of NVC. I'm just going to go one at a time. I'm not going to introduce you to all 4 and then talk them through, because I don't want you to think about future ones before I'm done with this one. So the first one is observing. And it's not just observing, it's learning how to observe without evaluation. So just observing the facts and not impressing your own story upon it or your own moralistic judgment upon it. And actually in the book, I remember I did this once and I didn't have the page marked. And I was like, oh God, I hope I can find this. So then I marked the page this time. So even in the book, let's see. Was it this one? Where did we go? Here we go. Oh, I have multiple marks. So this part is called like the highest form of intelligence. And so being able to observe without evaluation is so hard, because our brains have evolved to, it hits, I think like the brain stem. I can't remember what the first part of it is. Basically like that brain, the part of your brain that fight or flight, freeze comes from. And we have evolved to basically make like a snap judgment. And sometimes we aren't aware of that. And that snap judgment can be a story, right? And it can basically be you observing something. And before it gets to your prefrontal cortex, which is like who you are, your logic, your opinions, before it gets there where you can like make you can say like, hey, no, hold on. Let's think about this. Before it gets there, it goes through that part that has helped us survive and run away from, I was going to say run away from dinosaurs, but I don't think we lived with the dinosaurs. So running away from woolly mammoths, leading them off a cliff. So that part, it's evolved to basically help us make those snap judgment decisions like, oh, there's a snake. I don't know right away if that's a poisonous snake or just a gardener snake, but it's a snake and I'm afraid and I'm going to run, right? That's what's helped us survive. But that also can hinder us. Oh, there we go. The amygdala. Thank you. That one is from, I'm reading Brain Rules right now. And the first chapter is about the evolution of our brain. It's super good, but I couldn't remember all the science stuff. I'm a communication person. I didn't learn that in school. But it is so hard to fight the natural response of our brain. But once you know that that is what's happening, it's so much easier to say like, okay, wait a second. Am I observing right now? Or am I passing judgment on something? I see this and what's happening is just straight out like, let me see. What's a good example of that? I'm trying to think. Like if you see somebody with a crying baby in Target, right away you can think like, that baby is so spoiled, or that parent is so irresponsible. Why can't they just keep their kid quiet? Something like that. But that's not the observation, right? The observation is that child is crying. Nothing past that. That is the observation. But it's like part of our evolution that we try to label it, right? We try to place it in a bucket and saying like, this is what's happening. And now I know how to react to it. So just the fact that we now understand that that's what happens can put you in so much more control. Because then you can say like, hey, brain, I don't know that parent is irresponsible. Why did I think that? What is making me think that? That is not the case. That baby is crying. I'm going to let it be, give them like a sympathetic smile or, just let them not make a scene. I'm not going to make a big deal of it because all it is that baby is crying. We don't know why. We don't know the story. That's all we're observing. And in the book, the part that I wanted to get was, the highest form of intelligence. So the Indian philosopher J. Krishnamurti once remarked that observing without evaluating is the highest form of human intelligence. And when Marshall B. Rosenberg first read this statement, the thought, what nonsense, shot through his brain before he realized he had just made an evaluation. It's like, oh, it happens that fast. You don't even realize that it's happening. So I love that little part that he shared where it was just like, that's ridiculous. And it's like, oh, I just did it. And so learning how to observe the facts without impressing our own story upon it is a super valuable skill. Like at work, especially now in the days of like Zoom and texting and emails, there's so much that we glean we try to fill in the gaps, right? We try to assume we know what the sender is, what their intonation is, what their face looks like when they're sending this email. And it's like, oh, why are they being so snarky? And then you have to reread the email or the message and just be like, all they're saying is they can't have lunch, they have a meeting. Like, those are the facts. And then I am impressing my own story upon it. I have allergies right now. My allergy medicine makes my mouth so dry. Okay. So, and feel free to put stuff in the chat as well. It's so weird just talking to like a blank void. I just see myself right now, and I'm doing this a lot. So yeah, feel free if you have any comments or questions or anything, or if you just want to chat inside, that is totally cool. So the next part of nonviolent communication is feelings. Allergies are the worst right now. I thought this was super interesting because I was like, I have feelings. I know what feelings are. What's this one going to do? And then it went into it a little bit more, and it kind of talked about, especially in, I think, English speaking cultures, we aren't great at using our words to really get down to the nitty gritty of how we're feeling. Again, because we're so outwardly focused, we don't go inward enough and really evaluate how I'm feeling. For me, I use the word bum, like I'm super bummed all the time, or stoked. I sound like a surfer. I'm like, dude, I'm super stoked. Or I'm just like, no, it's fine. I'm just bummed out right now. No big deal. And those words aren't super helpful. If I'm saying that to somebody, I'm not really giving them anything to do anything. They can't help me if I'm just like, I'm bummed. Especially if I follow it up with, no big deal, don't worry about it. And so learning those words that describe more specifically what we're feeling is super helpful. And learning how to recognize how we're feeling. So one thing I want you to try right now is think about a time recently that you really felt something. Like it could be good, could be bad. I want it to be something though. Especially where it was like, I gave this presentation at Twin Cities Startup Week and it made me feel something. Or I got an email from my boss and I felt something. So just take a moment and think about that and formulate that sentence. I really want you to think about that sentence. That made me feel, I felt. Okay, so with that sentence, is anybody here saying something like, I felt like I was being judged. I felt that you were irresponsible. I felt that something. Basically, if it's I felt that, or if it's, even if it's like, this made me feel because, if it's not followed by I felt rejected. Yeah. That's a good one. So if it's anything like that, really break that down. Those aren't, if it's I feel that, it's not that inward feeling. We're again impressing what we assume the outward stimulus, like we're impressing what we think the other person is thinking upon our own feelings. Like, I feel that you're being irresponsible. That's not a feeling, right? That's a judgment. What does them being irresponsible make you feel? I feel sad because I put a lot of trust into getting this project done, or I put a lot of emphasis, I put a lot of pressure to get this project done, or I put a lot of excitement on getting this project done. Yeah, same with I feel rejected. What does rejected mean? What are the feelings behind being rejected? What does rejection make you feel? I feel distressed and downcast because I was rejected for this job. And so learning how to really dig down and figure out what you're feeling is quite the skill. Because first of all, we have to sit with ourselves. And it's usually when it's not a good feeling, right? If it's a good feeling, it's like, hey, I'm happy. I don't need to figure out too much why. I'm happy. I'm good. But if you're feeling rejected, it's like, why? Why are you feeling rejected? Not why are you feeling rejected, but what is the rejection actually making you feel? And sometimes if you read this book, he has a lot of examples where he has to go through this like multiple rounds with people and be like, nope, that's not quite what you're feeling. Like, how does it make you feel? And it's important to understand our feelings because of the next pillar. In the book, there's just 2 pages full of words that we don't use that often, but they're words that describe our feelings. This side is like for our good feelings. This side is for our bad feelings. But I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it. When you think of like zestful and gleeful, they're pretty similar, right? It's like, I could be zestful, I could be gleeful. But then when you get to the definition, zestful is full of energy and enthusiasm. Gleeful is exuberantly or triumphantly joyful. And if you're ever worried that somebody might not know the differences between the 2 words, just say the actual definition, being like, I'm feeling full of energy and enthusiasm. Let that person in. Let the other person in, enjoy your energy and enthusiasm. And then a little bit more on the negative side, you have forlorn and gloomy. Those sound super similar. I feel like I could use those very interchangeably. But forlorn is pitifully sad and abandoned or lonely. And gloomy is feeling distressed or pessimistic. I've definitely felt gloomy over the past 18 months. I feel very lucky not to have felt forlorn, but I've definitely felt gloomy. And that is way more helpful than saying that I'm bummed, right? We aren't helping out the other people by just saying we're bummed. If I say I'm feeling distressed or pessimistic, that lets the other person say, hey, what's distressing you right now? Is it work? Is it friends? Is it me? Is it just the situation in our world right now? Do you want to talk about it? So opening up and letting people know how you're actually feeling can feel very vulnerable. Might feel a little too messy for like a work situation, but it is so beneficial. It is so helpful because it really is just giving a gift to the other person of saying like, here's how I'm feeling. And hope, and now we understand like what's at the root of the next pillar, my needs, my unmet needs, my met needs. So usually what's happening is our needs can be either met or unmet. And that causes our feelings, that creates our feelings. And a lot of times when we think about nonviolent communication, it's, if this is coming in, I think we're having some unmet needs. And that is learning like, I feel the need to be safe, or like, I feel the need to be fed. I can think of a situation when me and my partner were out, and it's so silly. We were out and I can't remember what exactly it was, but I wanted to go to like this cupcake place because I really wanted some cupcakes. I got all worked up for it. And we got there and it was closed. And I just got, oh my gosh, I got so bummed out. But of course, at that time, I didn't really understand it. And I like turned inward and got super quiet for the rest of the car ride. And he's like, what's wrong? Do you want to stop somewhere else and get something else? And I was like, no, I'm fine. It's fine. But I could tell it wasn't fine, but I couldn't figure out why. I was like, why does this bother me so much? This is so stupid. And then if I really think about it, the unmet need was basically predictability. I like order, right? I expected that store to be opened and it wasn't opened. I was expecting it was basically unmet expectations. I think that need, it wasn't the need for a cupcake. It was the need for the thing to happen that I was expecting to happen. And it didn't. And it made me feel just like let down, I think was the feeling behind it. It wasn't the cupcake itself. And then as soon as I expressed that to my partner in the car, we laughed about it and I felt so much better. And then we stopped at a grocery store and got cupcakes. But it's like in the past, I would have just held on to that and I probably would have been a sulker for the rest of the evening, letting the cupcake store just ruin my night. And I wouldn't be able to figure out why. And so being able to identify the needs that we have that are being unmet will help us dig down and understand the feelings that are being created because of those unmet needs. Are there any questions so far? And we're getting very close to the end. I have one more pillar. All right. So with our needs, we can kind of create our own unmet needs by how we receive things. So there's 4 different ways that we can receive like negative feedback. One of those is to blame ourselves. Be like, oh, I'm so stupid. That was the worst. And that's just going to hurt ourselves, right? That's judgment on ourselves. No progress is going to come from that. Blame the speaker. Like, no, you're wrong. How? You don't know what you're talking about. That's a comparison. You feel better than them. They're wrong. Shuts down communication. Nothing more is going to come from that. And then we start sensing our own feelings and needs. And it's like, oh, I get this negative feedback. How's that making me feel? I feel silly. I feel stupid. Why do I feel like that? What is causing me to feel like that? For me personally, I've found that I have a need to be seen as a smart person. I need to be seen as a competent person. And when I make mistakes and people tell me that I made a mistake, that's all they're doing. All they're trying to do is help me get better. But then the story that I tell myself is that they're pointing out my failures. They're saying that I screwed up and that I stink, right? But that's because I have a need to be accepted and praised and seen as very smart. I want to be seen. You know what? It sometimes is like, it feels a little uncomfortable to say these things, but it's like, that is the need that I'm not getting met when I get feedback. And it's okay. That's okay if that's your need, because now that you know it, you can address it and not let the feelings that it generates control you. I know that I want people to think I'm competent and smart and perfect, right? I know that's a need of mine, and I know that it's not a need that can always be met. And it's sometimes it's just not a realistic need. And so when I get that feedback and I have that feeling of just like, rude, why couldn't they just say like, your code is amazing, let's push it? You know, they care enough about me to give me that feedback so that I can continue to get better. And so my immediate feeling is just that, like, then I think about it and I reread it and I'm just like, hey, all they're saying is that I should update this. All they're saying is like, there's a better way to write this. And if you want to, here's how. And so it has put so much power back in my hands, learning that I have control over myself and how I react to things. Just being aware that this is how our brains work. And it's like, it's not my fault. It'd be my fault if I acted upon it, right? But it's not my fault that I feel this way. Now that I know that I feel this way because needs of mine are not being met, then I can create an informed response of saying like, I really appreciate you taking the time to review my code. Can we sit down and talk about this? Because I'm not totally sure what to do next. And the last way to receive negativity, so that was sensing our own feelings and needs. The next one, I feel like once we start seeing that in ourselves, we're able to start seeing it in others. So the last one is sensing others' feelings and needs. So you don't diagnose people, but maybe what you can do is ask more of those probing questions of, of figuring out if they react in a negative way, figuring out what need of theirs is not being met, or understanding how they're actually feeling. But I think just being aware that other people are going through the same thing just helps you communicate with others. The very last one, the last pillar, I apologize, I'm going to have to go through this really quick, is requests. And this one's really important because it's basically, if we don't make our requests, this whole cycle will start again. We'll start being judgy and tell ourselves story and compare ourselves to others. We will start to just disregard our feelings, and we won't understand the needs that aren't being met. And then our needs will continue to be unmet because we're not requesting for anything. So requests, a big part of the requests is asking for actions that might help fulfill our needs. It feels weird sometimes, especially in Minnesota, where it's like every request is like, or not, I don't care. You don't have to, no big deal. Right? So it can feel kind of weird to like ask for things. But if we accompany our requests with our feelings or the needs that it will fulfill, it sounds less like a demand and more like an actual request. I don't want to get there. I have some really good examples. So I'm going to go through the examples really fast because I think it can be super helpful. So using that positive language, what are we requesting as opposed to what aren't we requesting? So instead of saying, don't work so much, and it's like, okay, cool, I won't work so much. I'm going to go play golf. And it's like, no, actually, I wanted you to hang out with me. So instead of saying, don't work so much, say, hey, I would love it if we could spend some more time together. If that's really what you are wanting, ask for it. Use clear, positive, concrete action language. Being clear, and like there's an example in the book where husband and wife, and the wife is like, I just want you to let me be myself. And he's like, I do let you be yourself. You can do anything. And so they dug down, and she's like, well, this is uncomfortable and weird to say, but I guess I just want you to smile and be supportive of anything that I do. And so that's the fact that he was just letting her do things wasn't what she wanted, just like that support and that feeling like what she was doing was okay. Making a request versus expressing feelings. Like if somebody went to the kitchen and I was like, I'm thirsty. They're like, okay, that's cool. That sucks. Instead of, and another way that you could say that is like, hey, while you're in there, can you grab me a glass of water? You can add your feeling of I'm thirsty to it. If you need to, you can always ask for a reflection. Say like, was that clear? Did I explain that? And especially if it's really hostile, then you can ask them, what did you hear me say? Kind of like a talk back, making sure there's not that miscommunication. And remember, it is a request, not a demand. The listener has the right to say no. If you're assuming they're going to say yes, if you are just like, I barely even have to ask this, because they have to do it. If they have to do it, tell them that it's a requirement, right? Don't disguise your requests or don't disguise your demands as requests, because then you'll get upset if the listener says no or has a differing opinion. So keeping that in mind while you're making your requests is that it's a two-way street. All right. We're super close to the end, but I see Lolly wrote something. How do you navigate working on being open to feedback when you don't necessarily trust the source? Oh, that's really tough. That's just something you will have to sit with and think on your own and really dig into yourself and analyze the person. Think about, what do you think of the person who's giving you the feedback? Why are you thinking that? What's causing you to feel like they're on the side of the patriarchy? What is causing you to feel like their feedback is not valid? What story are you telling yourself, right? So making sure that we are observing without impressing our own evaluation upon that feedback, and then evaluating how we feel about it, what needs are being met or unmet, and then making requests. Be like, I don't like receiving feedback like this because I can't see your, or especially, if it's in person, like, for me personally, I would prefer receiving feedback in written form because I get to evaluate it on my own terms, making those requests of what's going to help you do better. Because hopefully if they're giving you feedback, that means that they care enough about your success, even if it's just selfishly, that they care enough about your success so the company succeeds. If they are giving you feedback, there could be little tidbits of something good in there. And don't let just, I don't want to say don't let the patriarchy get in the way, but that's awful. Let them get in the, don't let the patriarchy get in your way of getting some good information out of this, there could still be good pieces there. Damn the patriarchy. There still could be some good stuff there. Hopefully that was helpful. That was really fast. I could totally go into this a lot more, but don't let just the fact that it's the patriarchy giving you that feedback that stops you from listening to it and deciding what to do with it. You get to decide what to do. If it's not valid, toss it aside. Maybe tell that person why you don't think it's valid. Thank you so much. All right. I'm right at time. This is so much fun. I could have talked for freaking ever. So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Cassandra Danger on Twitter, or just find me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or if you want to talk about anything, I'm always down. Also, Suna is hiring. If anybody wants a job, check out our career page. I'm always looking for new engineers to work with. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great morning.